I believe we're live now.
I believe we're live as well. Hi, everyone. My name is Victoria Bruce. I am the publisher and producer of the Arundel Patriot. And my heart is beating because I'm full of gratitude, joy, and there's also a lot of pain going on for mothers today. And so we are starting a new series that I think is extremely important for this nation, for the world. And I'm gonna let Monica Lindsay tell you about this, what we're doing and why today. But I just wanna say that the Arundel Patriot was created 3 years ago as a platform because we saw local news and regional news shrinking and getting smaller and the budgets being cut and not a lot of important stories and media getting out there, not a lot of important conversation. We're now coming back in full force. We have so many people, we're so excited, and we are now starting a model, which is called a Patreon model, where we have subscribers. We're all volunteers, but there are costs associated with the Arundel Patriot. So we ask you to go to Patreon/Arundel Patriot. You can find that on our Facebook page, this page that you're watching. And you can also go to our website, which is arundelpatriot.org. We have covered very important stories over the past year that had to do with a white supremacist who was on the Anne Arundel County Council. We covered stories of things that have really been brought out to light. And we want to shine light on these types of events, these types of stories. And we also want to bring you programming like we are today. I think you're going to find this something that you've never seen on television before, which is straight, real, no BS talk between women who are hurting and trying to find ways to do better. So with that, thank you all for being here and watching. Please share to your networks from Arundel Patriot to your Facebook pages. Take a minute to do that. Ask people to join a watch party and amplify this message. Thank you very much. And I'll turn that over to Monica.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Mother's Day. And welcome to our first straight talk about racism.
No BS.
STAR, no BS. This new show is pretty incredible. It tugs at my heartstrings because it came because of the fact that a very sad situation is going on in our nation. And we've seen it happen over and over and over and over again. And it's exhausting, it's emotional, it's tragic. And these conversations need to be had so that we can find some source of healing, some source of recovery, and some source of path forward so that we can not have to keep going through this emotional roller coaster that happens over and over again. And the topic I'm talking about is racism. And racism comes in a form that can be very, very painful, particularly when it involves the loss of lives for Black and brown people because of the hate that some people harbor. I'm Monica Lindsay, and I'm joined here today with some extremely brave women on Mother's Day. Coretta Scott King, the late Coretta Scott King, her famous quote talks about the importance of women and how women must be the soul of this nation in order for this nation to be saved. And that's not a direct quote, but she talked about the importance of women taking a role in saving the nation. And that's today what all these women who've joined me have decided to do, is to take a step forward and have a tough conversation about a very, very tough subject. So first, we have a video to share. We just want to take a look at that. And then we're going to talk. We're going to talk about this tough subject.
One moment, and I'm going to get that ready. I apologize for the delay. I'm just about ready here.
This little video you're seeing is a little black boy, a little white boy, and you see them, they're running towards each other, they're hugging the streets. They're toddlers, and you can see the joy that they have with seeing each other. Now, this video shows us the nature of children. These two little boys love each other, and it's clear. And if you heard the video, you would have heard them saying to each other, my friend, my friend, my friend, and they're hugging and they're playing. And it's funny because the information given in the background said, it's not like they hadn't seen each other just the day before. Two little boys, it hadn't even been 24 hours before they saw each other, but the love that they have for one another is clear, and it's shining through in this video. And now what we're looking at is Ahmaud Arbery and the two men that took his life. If you didn't hear the story about Ahmaud Arbery, it's made nationwide news because Ahmaud Arbery was jogging one afternoon, and he jogged past the home of the McMichaels, and they decided to take his life on the street on that February 23rd day. In the street, they grabbed their guns and they hunted him down. The video is out there that shows the actual hunting, the actual lynching of Ahmaud Arbery. And it shows clearly two men in a vehicle, getting out of their vehicle with their guns on the street and shooting him on the street. I haven't watched the video because it was far more than I could even psychologically get myself up to take, but these are the two men. And if you can think about those toddler boys hugging each other straight, what happens between toddlers who don't know any reason than to love each other? And then here we have Lieutenant Richard W. Collins III and his murderer. Again, a black boy and a white boy. Years later, a black boy, black man, and a white man. What happens in those years to make hate replace love? And that's what we want to talk about, this thing called racism, because that's what gets in and it makes hate replace love. So thank you for joining us today. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this tough subject, and hopefully you'll be joining us for more series as we continue this dialogue, because we're not one and done with this. Because this is a subject that's going to take a lot to get to the heart and soul of. And it's going to take a lot for us to understand how to get over this mountain called racism. So the first question we have, ladies, these ladies have joined me today, and we're all kind of fighting back tears. So this is going to be an emotional join us. You're going to join us on this emotional journey. So we're going to all answer the first question that we have is, why are we here? Who wants to start?
Well, Monica, I guess I'll start. My name is Dawn Collins, and I'm the mother of the young man that was shown, Lieutenant Richard W. Collins III. It's almost 3 years that Richard was standing while being Black at the University of Maryland and was stabbed by, I choose to call him the monster, in his chest. Now, we are living this ordeal. The sentencing is supposed to take place on June 5th, but mind you, this is a 3-year ordeal. So I feel personally what the mother feels in Georgia. You never get over it. The month of May is a very difficult month for me because so many things happened. So many promising things were happening for Richard. Richard had just been commissioned into the United States Army as a second lieutenant, intel officer. He was slated to graduate from Bowie State University. We had had a celebration of all his wonderful accomplishments. And he was on his way to South Korea. So in a matter of hours, my family went from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. And we're still fighting. And I consider it a privilege to be among you women because no mother should have to feel the pain that I feel daily. It's something you will never, ever get over. And I'm here because I want to talk about hate crimes. There are states in this nation that don't have hate crime laws. So they don't consider hate crime in their statistics because they don't have the law. And my husband and I, and along with all you good women, are on this battlefield to say, these are real people and it hurts. We quote unquote did what we were supposed to do for our children, sending them to school, educating them, and still it was not enough. Again, then, and we had to go through this long, drawn out process with the military for him to be properly recognized. I won't belabor it, but I am on this battlefield and won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop.
Good morning. My name is Jacqueline Alsop, and I feel the pain of Miss Collins. I feel her pain because too often people will judge a person just because of the color of their skin. And when they see that they are different from them, they will put negative behaviors on that group of people. And that's what racism is. Racism is when we see others that are different from us and then label them with a lot of negative behavior. Today, we're faced with a health pandemic, but our nation has been faced with a racist pandemic for many, many years. It's woven into the fabric of this nation. What is it that we can do? I don't have the answer. I looked at the picture of the two little boys running and holding each other. Those two kids were showing love for one another. No child is born to hate another. But in their upbringing, as they are raised by their parents, and also when they come in contact with their siblings, their friends, the community, that's when they begin to learn some negative behaviors. It doesn't happen to all, but it does happen to some. And that is disheartening to me.
Who's next? Claudia.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Why I'm here is because I have a passion for social justice issues, and I have a passion for civil rights and civil rights laws. And so, of course, these two murders of
Lieutenant Collins.
and Lieutenant Collins have struck a chord with me, just as it has struck a chord with the entire nation. And it's it's time for people to acknowledge their complicitness if they are silent.
Absolutely.
And they stay in the same state of complicitness. Happen. We've got to move beyond that and speak up and speak out about injustices, be they in the district attorney's office, if the injustices are in the courthouse, if the injustices are in the legislators and how we interpret laws, how we create laws. We've got to speak up. We've got to speak up about injustices in the workforce. We've got to speak up about injustices that happen. When you examine the workforce, and the workforce looks like all of the low-level positions are filled with minorities and there's no opportunity for promotion. Speak up, say something, say it loud. About the fact that there should be change there. It's obvious, and there should not be any more complicitness. Thank you.
Who's next? Vicki.
I'm here because I have a lot of pain from watching mothers lose their children because their skin is Black or brown or Asian. And I don't know what I can do. And I've always known I had white privilege. And if I can speak up and I can do anything in my lifetime to help make this world better, I'm going to do it. So I don't have any answers, but bringing us all together in a real way and having conversations and helping other white women who I don't believe feel that they have racism in them, but to put yourself in that mom's shoes who has lost her baby. And that's all of our children. Every child on this earth is all of our children. And if we lose one, then every mom loses something. And we all need to feel that way. And I think by having conversations and hearing people speak, like Mrs. Collins, then more people, more white people will hopefully stand up and stop being complicit and stop making one post and then not again until the next murder, so it's a continuing effort, and it is our responsibility as the people with privilege to make sure that we're doing everything we can.
Jackie, you're muted.
For each of us that are on this call, and for everyone that's watching and listening to us, think about your son, your grandson. Think about him. And he is taking a jog in his community. He's out running in his community. Something that he does all the time. But I want you to put yourself in the place of Amon's mom. Think about that.
Yasmin.
Hi, my name is Yasmin, and I'm here because, like Jackie just said, I have a son, and I do think about that because my son has the privilege of looking white, so I've never had to sit and have a discussion with him about, what he should do or where his hands should be, or could he wear his hoodie, which he likes to wear. I mean, my son's going to be 25 the end of this month, and I've never had to do that. And also I would like to, in this county, because I'm from Turkey, so I'm a Muslim, Turkish, I'm an immigrant. So I didn't ever have the same kind of experience. It was different, but I thought I lived in Anne Arundel County. This is a liberal state, da 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 da. And come to find out, 2017, when we all started kind of getting more involved in politics, to find out that actually I live in the one of the most racist counties, and especially where I live. I live in Arnold, where we had the white supremacist as our councilman, where the monster lives in Severna Park, probably like 5 minutes from my house. And so when I heard about Second Lieutenant Richard W. Collins III, oh my God, that was like horrible. And so that was horrible. And then when Vicky and Carmen and Dawn, I think we had to come to the funeral because we just, so we came and we actually saw the white supremacist there. And I was like, how, like, it was just incredible to see him there. Like, anyway, so that aside, we did get rid of him, thankfully. And I just want to thank Mrs. Collins for actually changing law. That, thank you. And I'm just, in the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I'm just here, and I hope that everybody out there, even, like, everybody has to look inside and just look inside, but when you're alone, and how you feel about things, because sometimes you can say, oh, I'm not a racist, or racism is dead, and all that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, I don't know what else to say, but I'm just here because my boy gets to go out there and doesn't have to worry about being pulled over, and he has to act a certain way or walk a certain way. And I want everybody to be able to do that.
Who's next?
I'll go. I'm Chrissy Holt, and it's a real privilege to be here with you all and to talk about this, to talk about racism and white privilege and what that means. And it's an honor to sit at the table with everybody here. And thank you, Mrs. Collins, for sharing your story. And my son was at University of Maryland then, and we were part of that. And actually 5 kids were killed in the 5 years that my son was there for different reasons. It was so tragic, and it's still tragic today. And I agree with Yaz that thank you for changing the hate crime laws here in the state of Maryland. And I am so, for all of our children and our grandchildren, I stay in these fights as an activist. And this is the cause. This is it. This is, the us, them, white, black, brown, the have and have nots, we're in that. And I want to be a part of the conversation where women come together and we begin to heal, to, what Monica was saying, that, if women, particularly Black women and brown and white women, if we all came together And we decided that we wanted this world to be different for our children and our grandchildren, then we actually have the power to change that together. We would decide who's president with our voting power. We would decide what laws are okay and what laws aren't okay. We wouldn't put a governor in place that would unfund our historically Black colleges. We wouldn't put people in office that didn't respect Medicare for all and demand that that becomes the law of the land. So I'm very interested in participating in this conversation, bringing my unconscious, white privilege to the table and do what I need to do to connect with you all in this process so that we can heal as a community here locally, but perhaps even as a society. So thank you for taking us through this process today.
All right, Ali, you're up. You need a moment? You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Okay, because I'm gonna tell you, my heart is. I'm fury. I think you need to know I'm fury. I did not know that, and forgive me if I don't get her name right, Miss Collins.
Yes.
I did not know that was your son. And when you were on here, when, I came late, we had, when you all invited me. And I remember thinking, I wonder who her son is. And I knew from what you were saying, it was deep, but I knew it wasn't my place to ask you. And so when your son's picture popped up, I was already in some sort of way. And then it took me there, and so I think it's sweet. You put the picture up of the little boy, okay, yeah. And I don't mean to be dismissive of the picture in that video that was put up, but I'm gonna be straight up. It goes deeper than that. Because the reality of it is that when that little boy, those two little boys grow up, they're gonna separate. They're not gonna be walking hand in hand if things don't change. And we know the norm in the African-American community. My best friend, one of my best friends when I was growing up, I was tight, was a white girl named Lisa. And I remember hearing from the people in my community about, we know you love her, but things are gonna change. And of course, in my blindness of everybody, we're all the same. And I love everybody. You know me coming from Seattle, we all one. I really felt that when I was being told these things, that my people was talking bullshit. I would be straight up. And I had some deep, deep arguments with people about it. And lo and behold, we don't even talk. And not because of, it's just we grew apart and things did start to change. And I did start to notice that change in high school. And let me say something, because I know this may, for some of you all, if you don't understand the spiritual world, I'm an empath. And so I need you to understand that whatever Lisa felt, I felt it. When she was in pain, I felt her pain. When she was nervous, I felt her nervousness. And yet and still, her and I, we do not talk. We don't have any connection. I don't even see her on my Facebook page anymore. And so we have an issue in this nation that is deep about the hunting of a people. And this hunting, and I'm going to be honest, I have been pissed off that, and I know even now the family's using it. And I respect that. But that term lynching, we got a problem because hunting and lynching are two damn different things. The lynching wasn't occurring in Africa when they start kidnapping us. But I'll tell you what was happening in Africa. They were hunting us. And if you read the primary sources of Africans that are kidnapped and they are put on those ships, what they describe, and if you read the contents of the slavers, what they describe is a strategic, methodical plan in order to capture a people. And it is hunting. And what scares me is that this hunting is not only taking place with the African-American male, which is by design why it always is put at the forefront, but it is also done with our children and our women. And I think that this nation is more than in crisis. We are teeter-tottering. We are teeter-tottering. And something about this death with Ahmaud, it's different. It's different. It's the same as what happened to Mrs. Collins' son. But I think it's because we have video to see it. It has made it different. Something has shifted. And I can't explain that either. And I'm going to tell you that if something does not happen here soon, this nation, the implosion is going to come so quickly. I don't even know if any of us are going to be prepared for it. This has been 400 to 500 years in the making. And we have a sect of society that refuses to come to the table with us and address it and fix it. And as African Americans and as Indigenous people, we can't fix this. We can't fix this. We can heal, but we can't fix something that our ancestors did not create. Ooh. All right. And so this is big. And one little other note, I've been getting pissed off because it's so funny. I keep kind of looking at my phone, and I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I keep looking at my phone, and the numbers keep going up, fluctuating up and down with the people are coming in. And that's the problem. Like those numbers that are coming in on my live stream are reflective of this nation and this conversation and the help that occurs. Everything is spontaneous and it goes up and down. You know who's going to be consistent and you know who's not going to be consistent. And the reality of it is our white counterparts are not consistent. They're not even coming to the table. Yeah. And so if there's no consistency, and then they're not coming to the table, and then every time they hear the term race, they're running. How do you think healing and conciliation, like presidential candidate Mark Charles talks about, is going to happen? Because he's right. There's no such thing as reconciliation. We're in a moment of conciliation. And it's like, what do we do with that when our people are getting gunned down in the streets and we're still sitting here?
All right, Ms. Collins.
Alice, I want to say something to you too about the point of Ahmaud's video, and you're absolutely right. In the world that we live in, I had the privilege of meeting Emmett Till's first cousin, and the words that she left with me that are so profound: a hate crime was committed yesterday. We just don't know who it was and where it was. And because of videotape, it is being brought to the forefront. And believe it or not, that's what was shown in the instance of my son's murder. There was a videotape showing what happened. But we're not, I don't want to see it on the 6 o'clock news. So these things, people have to be vigilant and know that these things are happening daily. It's just that it's not being recorded. It took 2 months for this situation in Georgia to be brought to the forefront, and only because there was a videotape.
What about the fact that a lot of people don't believe things like this happen until they have it on videotape? They question the fact that racism exists in 2020. They question the fact that it would have existed in 2017 or 2018. But they don't believe it until it comes like right in their front porch. How do we get to the point where we get people to understand, like you said, a hate crime was committed yesterday. There may not be a videotape, but it happened. How do we get to that point where people will believe things that they don't necessarily see when the evidence is right there over and over and over and over again? And then, like you said, this fabric of this nation is built on this thing. How do we get there?
I agree that it happens daily, and there are a number of incidents that go unreported. And I think possibly that some may think that what's going to be done about it?
Right.
Are they going to do something for me? And just going into a grocery store and being accosted by someone. You're going into a grocery store or any type of store just to shop, to pick up something, and you have someone following behind you. And they're following you, why? Racial profiling, because you're Black, and they relate Black behavior and stealing with Black people automatically. And we all know that's not true. When we see something happen, we need to say something. We need to stand up for each other. We all say we want to come together as a people. How are we going to come together as a people? There are a few of us that are out there working together now. I've been a community activist for a long time, working in my community to try to make things better. And I've been working alongside of Black and brown people and white people who care about what happens to us. There are some people who have blinders on. If someone, Monica, you say they said racism doesn't exist, I don't think it happens. They have blinders on.
Sometimes I get the feeling in, you know, the white Democrat liberal community that they literally feel like as long as if Trump was gone, we could go back to when there wasn't racism. I mean, it's kind of like all these bad things are happening because because I think that a lot of white people because we're not faced with this, because we're not followed in the store, because we don't have to worry about telling our kids not to wear a hoodie, that only when we had this insane leader who's, you know, really like, he's sparking these fires of racism in people that, you know, white people are like, oh my gosh, you know, look what Trump's doing. Well, for obviously this is not since Trump, like Ali says, this is 400, 500 years. And I think that that's a conversation that needs to be had, because even the people who came out to the Women's March and put their hats on and held their signs, would these people be out here once we get rid of Trump, or are all the white people going back to sleep because everything's fine? And that's, you know, that's why I want to keep having these conversations. And yeah.
I was just thinking the same thing when you said that, because
Yeah.
I agree too. I agree with that. When was America great? I don't know. How, you know, it's like make America great again, what they say, but then the liberals say the same thing, like get rid of him. And then we go back to the old ways of what? When was it great? What are we going back to? And I also get tired of hearing the slow changes. Like, you know, you can't push it too hard, little changes at a time, elect the right people. And then, oh, that person didn't work out. So now we're going to wait 4 more years to maybe get the next, you know, one that might be right. So I'm sick and tired of hearing about that, about how the incremental changes. I don't like that word. And so, you know, I don't know what we do, but I don't think it's going to, it's like Allie was saying the other day, I don't think it's going to work with that we're going into the system to change it, or we're going to get change by electing the right person. No, that's not going to work. I don't know what is, but those things haven't worked for many years. So, you know, that's what I have to say.
Claudia?
Well, I think that we should also be paying attention to the
Oh, Claudia.
men and for her and for her perseverance, but that just should not have happened to her. She should not have lost her son that way. And both Jackie Alsop and I are members and elected officials in the Arundel NAACP. So we see the volume of complaints, racially motivated complaints that come in that has happened in this community. We have a legal redress committee, and we sort through them. We can't get to all of them, but it's a lot of them. And people, just like Tyreek Hudson and his death, which happened so tragically in Glen Burnie, these people are not forgotten. Lieutenant Collins, many of us on here that are panelists, right? We were actively involved in going to the Anne Arundel County Council and wearing our Lieutenant Collins stickers and sitting in on council meetings, objecting, putting making sure that a resolution passed denouncing white supremacy. So it is that concern, and that we need to be on that trajectory to make sure that these issues don't die and that these deaths are not in vain, because part of it is also the fact that we see a lot of social media activity and uproar over Ahmaud Arbery's death. But there are people on the other side of the issue that want to dig into his past. Somebody needs to speak up and say, stop. We don't need to hear about, but see that conversation is already out there to try to, throw mud on somebody who is not even here to defend themselves. Absolutely. And the same thing happened in the Trayvon Martin case. And so we have to be more vigilant and more vocal about the fact that this should not happen, and that we should be mobilizing in a way where we not are just here to have a conversation, but we've got to be more proactive in making sure that policy changes are made and that people advocate in a way that the marginalized is heard. We can't have people in office that are just going along to get along. It can't be that simple. It's got to be better than that. We've got to be better than that.
And I think the collective community action behind Ahmaud's, the incident that happened in Georgia, played a major part. Had not that community, had not the people in Georgia continued to fight to bring justice, justice would not have been served.
Exactly.
I think too, but I would hold off on saying justice being served.
Well, you're right. It hasn't been served yet. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, we need to.
Right.
We don't
we've
know.
We've brought it to the forefront.
Yeah. Because you're talking about Georgia. You're talking about down south. We're down south too, but we're the northern part. But you're talking deeper, further down south, and so we don't. Remember, they're going to get judged by their peers. And so the reality of it is that we don't know what's going to come out of that. And to be honest, I think also too, as we start having these conversations, we need to be honest that a couple of ass whoopings is gonna start occurring too. You know what I mean? And that's just fact. And for us not to have these conversations, it's going to have to happen. I think as we're having these conversations, we need to start trying to figure out how do we diminish the ass whoopings? Because you're talking about 400 to 500 years of oppression, and the people and who are starting to lead these charges now, they're not us, they're younger. And the younger generation, they don't have the type of tolerance that we have. And they're also not being given the language and the know-how to even know how to convey their emotions. I mean, you're talking about young men and little girls who have been stopped. And I don't know about y'all, but even going through DC, how many little white kids have you seen pulled out on the side, sitting on the sidewalk with their handcuffs behind them? Because I haven't never seen that before. And I don't know what happens in white neighborhoods, but I haven't seen in Baltimore and DC when kids are like, even if they're doing something, them being sat on the side of the road. Now imagine some of these young boys that's happened to more than once. And so I think we do need to be honest about what it's going to take to dismantle such an insidious structure.
Pause.
Well, the insidious structure is there. We have to admit that and acknowledge it. And I remember President Jackie Alsop, when she previously said the fact that you go into a grocery store or you go into a store, a clothing store, and you're profiled. You know, we've got to speak up about that, because I can acknowledge myself that maybe 50% of the time when I've walked into a store in maybe Arizona and maybe even in Maryland, I've been watched closely as I walk through the store. You know, I've seen security cameras go into the record mode as I innocently walk down an aisle. You know, and I already know it's because of the color of my skin. It has nothing, it has nothing to do with anything else. So that whole incident of where people are closely monitored as they walk into stores and racially profiled, that's real. And we've done work in the Caucus of African American Leaders and also with the NAACP, where we've reviewed statistics of police stops. So we know who's being stopped, how many times they're being stopped, and how long they've been stopped, and the disparities there. But we've also seen it also in the system. We've got to pay attention to the system and systemic problems, institutionalized racism, the jury system. And everybody's going to be closely monitoring these trials involving Ahmaud Arbery's murder. And how the jury system is going to work out, because that's going to be important as well. But we also have to be looking at who these judges are that are presiding in these cases, and how they're thinking.
Mm-hmm. So, Claudia, and I guess the question is for Claudia and Jack, well, for everybody and Jackie, but when we're marching and we're advocating and we're in full steam, and the police come up and they profile our Black friends in that moment, I know to pull my video out and I'll take a video of that and I will participate in that process. So in the store scenario, is that something that you think, or would it be helpful for me to participate? I mean, how would that actually go over? If I see that you are being profiled in a store and I approach with my phone to say, how can I help you? Is that helpful? Would that be helpful?
I think that videotaping can be helpful, because we see right now that many times versions of stories are not even believed if there is no video.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I think also,
see what I mean? Yeah.
People addressing management and saying, I know you're videotaping Black people when they come in.
Right.
in addressing management and saying, I'm not going to support you all financially. I'm not going to shop here anymore if this is the way I see you treating people of color. And, you know, making that stand financially and hitting them in the pocket with it. If we could get people to start defending people against businesses and against these other, you know, entities, then we could really, as people, make a huge difference.
Right.
If
Well,
you have your right voice to stand against what you see being detrimental to people of color, that would help and go a long way in this battle that we're in. I see Yaz, you got your hand up.
yeah, as you're muted.
Totally agree with you, Monica. Now, as to videoing, I would think that, correct me if I'm wrong, Claudia, but you know, you'd want to ask the person, because there's also this distrust with a white person pulling out their, you know, video camera or phone to video. You know what I mean? So you might
Well,
want to.
in the Sandra Bland episode, I believe it was a white person that was behind the scenes videotaping that entire incident. And it was unbeknownst to the cop who was the one that ultimately arrested her. And you could see in the video how she was screaming when her head was hitting the ground. And so, you know, we heard different episodes. Well, not different episodes, but what I mean is that we saw on the camera exactly what happened.
But like when Chrissy's saying, should, like, going up to the person, like, not in that case, you know, you're videoing an action that's happening, but like, you know, like you're walking through the store and somebody is, you know, following you or something, for her to come up to you and say, hey, do you need some help? Or do you want me to video? I mean, I don't know.
Remember,
Well,
I didn't mean to cut you off. Can I speak real quick, Claudia?
Yeah.
Remember in the we called her Barbecue Betty? Remember when the African American community was they were barbecuing in Cali, and then the white woman called the police? It was another white woman who put her on blast, who came in her face and was like, what are you doing? And she started recording her, and she followed this woman for like 2 blocks. And you sat here when this other white woman was recording her peer. You watched this woman not only melt down, but start lying or whatever. And so I do think that's just the whole point. Like, if you want to dismantle racism, white people are going to have to dismantle it. How are they going to do that? They're going to have to start holding themselves accountable. And I'm going to be honest with you. It is, yeah. They have it, because this is theirs. This is their creation. You know, just like the burden of slavery has become ours, well, the burden of racism has become theirs because of their ancestors. And so,
Vicky's next, but we are at 2:55 right now, so I'm just giving you a 3-minute warning on the conversation. Go ahead.
Real quick, I know that the only person who went to prison for Eric Garner's murder was the person who was videotaped him being murdered by the police. And that was a Black man. And I think it's really important that every white person, every time they're seeing a person of color get pulled over, to stop and get out your phone if you can. And I was with my daughter in the subway in New York when this happened. And all of a sudden I had that mother instinct. I was fearful. And so I was trying to walk away, and my daughter said, Mom, you have to film. She's 16. So I sent her away. I said, okay, you go up the subway stairs. And I stayed and I waited until the man the police had let him go. But this is a time for white people to take those risks. And I'm glad my daughter made me do it. And I'm glad that she has that ability to recognize injustice. And I think that's something that we all need to do, but it is scary. And now we have to go in those places that are scary for white people.
I mean,
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, in the advocacy for healthcare, when I talk to white women and white people about this, they're always like, well, it's good for me. You know, there's this us them narrative. And when you really look underneath why people don't agree with Medicare for all, it's because they believe it's good for some, but it's not good for others. And that's it right there. That they think they're separated. They don't think we're connected. They don't think that we're one. And so that particular topic and that particular activism, we bump into racism every day, all day, when we're talking about, you know, why everybody needs. It's just one of the many topics, but it is absolutely, I bump into it all the time. Sorry, Mrs. Collins, go ahead.
I just wanted to bring out a point that I had forgotten, that there is a concerted effort by white supremacist groups to target universities, predominantly white universities. They are targeting these universities and the individuals there. There's statistical data that this is going on. So they are mobilizing to do that. So it is just as imperative that we mobilize on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be 30 seconds in this point. Perhaps when we continue these conversations, we should get into other areas, such as the trumped up charges against people of color, and how it impacts their careers, their livelihoods, and even the fact that you have people that are wrongly convicted for years and their future going forward. And we should also address the fact that, and I like the idea that people raise the issue of videotaping, because there can be some progressive movement that shows these restaurants or businesses that are racial profiling, put them up on websites, let people know that, hey, this business racially profiles customers, so that you are aware before you spend your dollars there.
That's right.
And then we can wrap it up from here.
Okay, I'll just make it really quick. We were talking about racism, and I'm sure that this conversation will continue on. And we need to really look at what is systemic racism and the fact that it shows up in our lives across society. Wealth gap, employment, housing, discrimination, government surveillances, incarceration, drug addictions, immigration arrests. All of these areas you will find racism.
All right.
Academics.
Yeah, education.
Yeah.
This is our first conversation of many, I hope. And I thank each and every one of you for participating, for being honest, for being true, for being emotional, for being here today on Mother's Day and launching this very important series in this very important dialogue that we all need to have, that needs to come to the forefront. Thank you for your activism and your advocacy and your bravery, and for all that you do. And we need to continue on this journey to make this nation and this world a better place for us all to live in. Vicki?
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in because I don't want anyone to leave, even though we've said goodbye officially, because Yasmin and our friend Simon, who is a refugee from Cameroon right now, he cut this video for us in Tijuana, where he's trapped right now because of terrible immigration policies. And we made this video with him, Yasmin, and Miguel, a famous artist. So
oh, sorry. I love Miguel.
Oh, one more thing. The Arundel Patriot is taking subscriptions. We really need your help. If you've enjoyed this content, if you think it's powerful and important, please become a patron. It's Patreon.com/Arundel Patriot, or you can find it on our Facebook page right here. If you go to shop, it'll take you to the link. You can go to arundelpatriot.org. And thank you everyone for being here. We are looking for more people to join these types of very real conversations. As you can see, this was not planned. scripted. We are all here trying to find ways forward. If you would like to be involved in these conversations, please send an email to editor@arundelpatriot.org, and we will give us the reason why you feel like you want to be on this type of program and you want to open up and have these kinds of conversations. We need you. Okay.
Like join the NAACP or Allie's conversation starters, right?
Our Revolution, Anne Arundel County.
Yeah.
Work on progressive candidates up and down the ballot.
Connecting the dots, Anne Arundel County, working on remembrance, reconciliation.
The Richard W. Collins, the Lieutenant Richard W. Collins III Foundation. Okay, here we go. Can you see my screen?
I cannot sleep. I cannot rest. I cannot dream. I cannot stay silent. I feel the violence in my soul. I feel the violence in my soul. I'm tired of human lives turned into hashtags and prayer hands. Tired of watching these murderers get off while we bury love, love, innocent brothers and sisters. It's time to wake up, wake up, wake up. Brothers and sisters, it's time to say something, do something, make up. I wonder how many black lives, how many black lives. How many heartbeats turned into flat lines? Oh. How many black lives? How many black lives does it take to wake a change? Does it take to wake a change? Does it take to wake a change? We can't let them die in vain. Does it take to wake a change? I cannot wait and be quiet. Oh, change does not come for the silent. Tired of excuses, we're all agree and just the same. I'm tired of all the pain, I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of all the day, I'm tired of all having to say. I'm tired of the letting go, I'm saying all the man. Brothers and sisters, it's time to wake up, wake up, wake up. Yeah. Brothers and sisters, it's time to say something, do something, make up. Oh, how many black lives, how many black lives? How many heartbeats turned into flat lines? Oh. How many black lives? How many black lives? I cannot sleep. I cannot rest. I cannot.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you on the Arundel Patriot Live for the next straight talk about racism. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, mothers.
Thank you. Straight talk about racism. Good afternoon, everyone.
Did you like that, Allie? That